The Denver Broncos offense could feature a handful of younger players in the coming weeks here. Sean Payton has indicated he wants to see a little bit more of the rookie draft class. Could that happen this week as the team takes on the New Orleans Saints on Thursday Night Football? We break that down and much more on today's episode, Locked On Broncos.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, Broncos Country? Welcome into another episode, Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to all the everydayers out there in Broncos Country. Thanks for making us your first listen, whether the team wins, loses, or even ties. You always come here for all your Broncos news, content, and coverage. We appreciate you. Subscribe or follow if you haven't done so already, so you never miss out on what's going on with your favorite team as they sit here at 3-3 following a disappointing loss on Sunday, but a short turnaround now as they prepare for the New Orleans Saints. We'll break all that down. And look, obviously for Sean Payton, he's going back to New Orleans. He even expressed himself. He's not expecting a warm, fuzzy welcome. We'll highlight some of the key superlatives going into this game here. What did we learn from the film review after going back and watching the All-22 and Denver's Week 6 loss against the Chargers? But we're going to kick things off on today's show by talking about, I think, a little bit of an important development of something that Sean Payton said in his post-game press conference, talking about going with the youth movement a little bit. He wants to see a little bit more some of these Broncos rookies, specifically on the offensive side of the ball.
Very excited to see that. Obviously, Cody, as we saw, Devaughn Vele led the team in receiving there in Week 6 against the Chargers. Troy Franklin catching his first NFL touchdown pass, and Audric Estime getting involved on that late touchdown drive for the Broncos as well. And obviously, Bo Nix really carrying the team on his back offensively. I know that there's not much offense to speak of for the majority of the game, but I mean, you look at Bo's numbers, he almost put up 300 total yards of offense by himself with 216 passing yards, 61 rushing yards. So he did a lot out there, despite what a lot of people are saying, I think. And look, you want to see these young players continue to get opportunities and develop. I think Troy Franklin in particular played over 60% of the snaps in this game. And we thought going into this season, based on what we had seen at, in the preseason, what you had seen at training camp, what we had heard about Troy Franklin, that, man, he might get redshirted a little bit this year. But I think Sean Payton has made it very clear in these last 2 weeks, like, there ain't no red shirts happening for these rookies. They are going to play, and it sounds like they're going to continue to play a lot.
We got to see these guys. We're a young team, and I want to see this runner as well. I want to see Estime, and we're going to see Bailey, and we're going to see Franklin, and we're going to see, we're not waiting to redshirt these guys. And so, we'll continue to see each week their involvement in that plan and how they fit. But that's how you get confidence and get experience.
And I think that's going to be an important element for them, Sayre, too, when you look at it. Like you mentioned Devaughn Vele. I think the yard after the catch demonstration that we saw from him, Bo obviously on one of those plays extending with his legs and then finding him off on a dump off. Vele gets to the 1 yard line, and then Troy Franklin, the next play, catches the back corner of the end zone right there. Touchdown was great to see from that standpoint. And even Audric Estime, look, he only had 2 carries in this game. He had 1 carry for 11 yards. And the thing I liked about that one specific carry was the fact that you see a little bit of everything, right? You saw obviously a little bit of the vision. You saw him plant his foot in the turf and then cut inside and then have a little bit of explosiveness and then bounced off of a defender or two. Like the physicality is there. You might see a little bit more of that. But I also want to say, okay, hey, Sayre, in this situation, if Denver and Sean Payton, if they're going to go with a little bit younger, right? Obviously, Courtland Sutton is going to be a big part of this offense still. He obviously, the one-handed touchdown was incredible. I think it is safe to say when we look at this offense, and we'll talk about this more once we talk about what we saw in the film, Denver needs more playmakers. And look, we don't know if any of these young guys, if Vele or Franklin can be that playmaker just yet, but you have to be able to try because the other guys simply aren't making it happen. Like you have size, but this is where I think the question comes in here, Sayre. Okay, if Sean Payton going forward is going to want to see a little bit more of Vele and Troy Franklin, at whose expense does this come into? Like from a blocking standpoint, you see little Jordan Humphrey This game, we didn't see a lot as a receiver from Lil Jordan Humphrey. You know what you're going to get out of Cortland. Cortland, I think, needs other pieces around him, and I think he's a fantastic player to be able to contribute. But part of me is wondering here, does this mean that maybe you phase Marvin Mims out of the game plan a little bit here? And I like that that Bo went after him. I like that Bo looked his way. I couldn't help but think by going back and watching the film that Marvin's height was a little bit of an issue. Now, look, on the first play that Bo had thrown to Marvin that was tipped and intercepted, that's on Bo Nix. That's not on Marvin Mims. Like, that's just a bad throw by Bo thinking, and like, you got to understand, Marvin's not that tall. So when Marvin has to jump up to try to get it and he has to tip it with one hand, it's going to be intercepted. It was going to be picked anyways, whether or not Marvin tipped it or not. But it's like understanding, it's like, all right, Marvin's strength is the speed, but certainly it's not something that Denver is capitalizing on. And then the deep shot downfield on that third down play, I can't help but think like, hey, if that's Vele or if that's Troy Franklin, at least they have the size to be able to rise up over the defender. Marvin doesn't have that against that corner there specifically. So with this move, would you phase Marvin out of the game plan offensively a little bit?
Yeah, I think that could be very well what he's talking about here. And I think, Cody, you know what? I have to crack this joke, because if Sean Payton wants to get younger on offense, playing Devaughn Vele, who shares a birthday with me, I'm going to be 35 here in about a month. I think Devaughn is pretty close behind me. No, I'm just joking, but I know what he means. He wants to get the rookies out there. He wants to get the younger guys out there, because Marvin Mims, young guy, right? He's an inexperienced former second-round pick. So on one hand, it's like, okay, yeah, I get what he's saying here. You want to get young, you want to go younger, you want to get, I think he's maybe talking about Devontae Williams. Cody, I can't help but think, I know we sang the praises of Devontae after 2 straight games of looking pretty darn good out there, but he specifically called out Estime's name when he was talking about, that post-game quote. He's like, I want to see some Estime. I'll see more Estime out there. And look, that to me is the best indicator that we have, because if Devontae Williams is going to go out there and be continually making these rookie mistakes, you might as well throw the actual rookie out there. If you're willing to live with, hey, let's live and die with whatever the results are, because Devontae's now fumbled twice at critical moments in one-score games that have led to 7 points for the other team in games that were decided by 1 score. So let's call it what it is. Like, these are game-altering fumbles that we've seen from Devontae in the first 6 weeks of this season. I'm not trying to just ride hot and cold on Devontae Williams and say, man, I think he's back one week and man, he's cooked the next week. But there are consistent issues that have popped up. We hoped that he was back, but I think, Cody, we could see against the New Orleans Saints, we could see Audric Estime carry the ball upwards of 15 or more times at the expense of Devontae Williams. And I think that is what, to me, that's what Sean's talking about, in addition to maybe phasing Marvin Mims out of the offense a little bit more. Although, to me, I would maybe continue to go back to Mims, but get him less opportunities in contested catch situations and more opportunities where, hey, maybe you're doing a couple of double crossing patterns, or try those dagger plays to Marvin Mims where he can make plays after the catch, because we know that Marvin is special when he has the ball in space. So to me, I really feel like, while it could be about Mims, I really feel like it's all about Devontae Williams and getting Estime more carries.
And that's the challenge too. It's like, okay, like Denver with all the receivers that they have on the roster, like with Lil Jordan Humphrey as well, you talk about the tight end production. It's like, how do you get some of these guys that you feel like can be playmakers for you, but maybe aren't getting the volume there? I'm liking what I'm seeing from Troy Franklin. I think Troy has progressed relatively nicely. Devaughn Vele is looking like the guy that we saw, in week 1, catching all the passes thrown his way. He did have, I think, 1 drop that, I was like, a little bit late in the game, but then you went right back to him and he found it. Like, he's a guy who's just not going to let one negative play break his confidence. So I think that we could see this as well, but also it kind of ties into the narrative, what we're going to discuss here. What did the Broncos offensive film show us from week 6 against the Chargers? Sometimes you go through and after a game, you're like, is it as good in certain moments as we thought it was, or is it as bad as it was? There's a little bit of mix in between here, but Denver's offense has some problems. And look, it's not play calling that really is the issue. We'll dive deep into that here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Broncos Country, today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And as week 7 of the NFL season is here. Yes, 7 weeks of action is here. FanDuel has the perfect opportunity for you to get involved with a big return here this season on side of America's #1 sportsbook. Because when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. And you'll get started today with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Once again, you place your first $5 bet inside of the FanDuel Sportsbook app, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed that you can use on week 7 of the NFL season. Thursday night football is approaching, and the Broncos will open up on the road against the New Orleans Saints as 1.5-point road underdogs on a short week where both teams are banged up a little bit. Denver in need of a big response, and there's some other big games coming up this week as well, all across the NFL on FanDuel Sportsbooks. Make sure you get inside there and check it out today on FanDuel.com. Once again, that's FanDuel.com. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at Prize Picks, and Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. On top of that, Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. And if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. So check it out. Sign up today and get a $50 instant bonus when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. So make sure you check it out today. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 on up. Once again, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Despite popular opinion, play calling is not the issue for the Denver Broncos. The film review showed Cody and I a little bit of what maybe the Broncos are being plagued by here at times when they are struggling on that side of the ball early in the 2024 season. We're going to break down what we saw on the film on today's episode, Locked On Broncos, but want to say thank you to all of you that make Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day. Every single day, you know that your boys, Cody and Sayre, we're going to be here for you every day, breaking down all things Denver Broncos, talking through the wins, the losses, and here on a short week, man, we got a lot to talk about and what the Broncos need to fix, especially offensively, as they get into this matchup against the Saints defense, which Cody has been one of the worst in the NFL this season. I know, bit of an outlier in week 6 where they gave up 51 points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but at the same time, they've given up a lot of points on multiple occasions this season. So we have to talk about, can the Broncos get right in this game, and what do they need to fix from our film review, what you saw and what I saw. Let's start with you, Cody. What did you see in this game? Why are we saying, hey, play calling is not the issue? What led you to that conclusion after watching back this game?
Well, it's the fact that Denver can't execute the simple things effectively, right? And let's go on the first exact drive here, against the Chargers. First play, you have an inside handoff to Devontae Williams where he's supposed to hit it inside between the tackle and the tight end because the tight end is supposed to pin out the defensive end. You've got a double team between the right tackle and Quinn Miners that's supposed to work up to number 0, the linebacker there. Well, number 45 shoots inside the tight end right next to where Matt Parrott is. So it's like the lane where Javonte's supposed to hit is not there. So Devontae has to bounce it outside. Well, the linebacker number 0, who's supposed to be double teamed, you're not able to work your way up to him. And so he's going to come free, and you have a DB coming outside as well. On that play there, it looked like they were running a little bit of an RPO because Cortland ran almost like a crosser right there. And then once he turned into a run, then he went to go find a defender to go block. Troy Franklin at the top of the screen kind of ran like a little bit of a hesitation, 1-2 step, come back like he's going to catch a screen with the blocker in front of him. So it was an RPO on that play. But then, hey, your second play, another inside handoff here. Well, it's not an inside handoff. It's under center. You toss it, but you're running inside there. Ben Powers working against a defensive lineman, but there's no push past the line of scrimmage. That defensive lineman is tracking down the line of scrimmage and really just keeping his outside arm free. He's scraping across, and he's just able to wrap Devontae up. So your first 2 plays, you only get 2 yards. Well, then you have the interception by Bo. The issues persisted on the other drives, though, Sayre, where they would have, okay, hey, they started going up tempo on their second offensive drive there. You start off with the screen, like a swing pass to Jaleel McLaughlin, who makes a great move inside, gets 6 yards. Then he gets a 3-yard carry. Okay, Jaleel has 9 yards on 2 plays there. You go up tempo, and then Garrett Bowles false starts, and it sets you back 5 yards. Like, it's the little details that are causing the biggest issues for the Broncos, whether it's in the blocking, whether it's, Bo making that mistake on the interception. I want to preface this by saying that Bo made that mistake on the Marvin Mims interception. Aside from that, I felt like his decision-making process was actually pretty good the rest of the game, and he avoided a lot of stuff there. But it's the fact that people want to say, oh, well, Sean Payton's play calling. Your play calling and your choices of what you can do are impacted early on based on what you do on first down and second down. And Denver was having negative plays consistently, or facing, once again, third and long, third and unmanageable situations, and not being able to execute the little things. So how can we talk about play calling when the simple things that should be the bread and butter of this foundation offensively aren't being executed properly? That's the issue. That's what I saw on the film review. On top of that, I also saw too many self-inflicted mistakes.
Lots of self-inflicted mistakes, Cody. I posted a nearly 3-minute video to my Twitter account highlighting a lot of these negative plays that really contributed to what people want to clown on Bo Nix. People want to say that I'm, doing this or that or the other to defend the guy when it's not justified. But you go back and watch this game. I have the play-by-play here in terms of every drive recap set up. So I want to go through something, okay? The Broncos go down 13-0 after, obviously, you already mentioned the false start that led to a 3-and-out for the Broncos offense at one point early on in this game, or that led to a punt early on in the game. After the Chargers went up after a 20-play drive in the second quarter, 13-0, the Broncos moved the ball past midfield. Devontae Williams fumbles the ball. The very, that next possession for the Chargers, they go 11 plays. They score a touchdown. So it's 20-0. The very next possession for the Broncos, you're down 20-0. You need to get something on the board before the half, right? So what happens? Bo Nix hits the dagger route to Courtland Sutton, sets the Broncos up in field goal range, if not an opportunity for a touchdown before the half to cut the deficit down back to 13 points, or at least, 17 points and make it manageable. And what happens? You get called. Quinn Miners gets called for holding. It pushes you back. It kills a drive. So that's 2 drives in a row in the first half that went beyond the 50. That should have been, potentially scoring drives. You get into the second half. I think the Broncos could have scored every single drive but one in the second half if it weren't for self-inflicted wounds throughout. Penalties, just complete nonsense out there from guys that we're seeing. And so to me, Cody, that is it. It's not play calling. Like, would it have been a bad play call if Marvin Mims catches that deep pass early on in the game? Was it a bad play call that, that Quinn Miners got called for holding when Courtland Sutton went for 50+ yards against a defense that Sean Payton said we had to literally go back to the preseason to watch the big plays that this team gave up, because they don't give up any. We saw the Broncos have a variety of 20+ yard plays in this game, a number of which that were called back. So I'm not saying that you can't play the what if game after every single loss, right? But you go back to this game and you look at the errors that the non-Bo Nix players are making, and it's impossible to ignore that these guys are not helping out the rookie quarterback, and they're certainly not making Sean Payton look good right now.
No, and look, I think the thing too, we always see the narrative that it gets sole responsibility on one person, like one player. Like we've acknowledged here in the show. I mean, we've acknowledged that the Broncos have issues across the whole team. Like since you joined me in 2021, it's not just quarterback. It's this play, it's this play, it's this unit. It's like, it's not just a one size fits all narrative here. But the one thing too about the whole play calling narrative, it cracks me up a little bit just to see that, because it's like, Denver is like, the designs are there, like things are scheming themselves open, but it's the execution that's been the issue. It's penalties. But another thing too, Sayre, that I look at, and it's like, the Broncos have no one that can create separation. Again, zone coverage, like you see all these teams. What is the trend defensively for playing against Denver this year? It's a lot of cover 2. It's a lot of cover 4. It's a lot of match. Like you're seeing a lot of these teams take away the deep stuff and say, hey, we want you to throw the football short because we believe that we can rally and we can tackle. That's what the Chargers did. Everyone's like, well, no one's getting open. Well, yeah, when you're having sometimes 3 routes against 5 different defenders, you can bracket and take away one of those options, and then the other guys can just be in the near vicinity and cover. Like, it's not that Denver has a lack. Like, I think you can get a boost from having a guy who can be a playmaker. Like, there are some guys in this league that can be game changers. And talk about the guys like Devontae Adams, as a specific guys like the Tyreek Hills. Like, those guys can be game changers just on their ability alone. But when we're talking about how defenses are playing the Broncos offense right now, Denver's young potential playmakers aren't necessarily getting the big flashes to do it. And another narrative that I want to challenge here, you see it as well. Well, the Chargers, they just played prevent defense the rest of the game. No, they didn't. Literally, the Chargers didn't change a single approach on how they played Denver's offense. Like, Jim Harbaugh offensively for the Chargers, they were up 20-0. They're still taking pop shots deep downfield. They didn't respect the Broncos. And defensively, they said, you know what, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to still pressure you. If the Chargers were playing prevent defense, why is Derwin James blitzing off the edge trying to get after Bo Nix in the fourth quarter? Why is there a 5-man rush? Why is there a 6-man rush in certain plays? That's not prevent defense. So I hate some of these lazy narratives that get put out there because it's the easy thing to say, well, they just did this because of that. Denver did some good things in the fourth quarter. It wasn't enough. It was too little, too late. But the fact remains, execution for this team on offense, the lack of a run game, the fact that Bo Nix on one play nearly gets creamed by a defender and Garrett Bowles is just standing there and Bo turns it into a 21-yard run, that's problematic. And that's not just on Bo Nix. That's on the whole offensive operation, the inconsistencies there. If anything, Bo gave them a reason to be in the game late here. I hate the emotional reactions after a game where everyone's like, oh, it's this guy's fault. He's a bust. It's over, blah, 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 blah. It's silly when you actually go back and watch the tape and you see everything around him. Some people can see the same thing, but they may not know what they're talking about. They may not understand what's happening on the picture. We've said it clearly on the show. Bo Nix has to be better, but everybody else around him has to be better too. It's not just on him. And also coaching has to be better as well. But as we've seen in this game, it's not a play calling issue. It's an execution issue. And that's been the issue for Denver pretty much throughout the season. So Broncos country, let us know if you've gone back and watched the All-22. Let us know your thoughts. What did you see from the Broncos offense? Well, you know what the New Orleans Saints are going to see. They're going to see areas where they're going to try to exploit them in Thursday's game. But for Sean Payton, it's his return. That was a big storyline in the offseason. This week doesn't seem to be as big of a storyline as he's not expecting to receive a warm welcome. We'll talk about how the Broncos are preparing for Thursday's game here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at the Game Time app, and Game Time makes it easier to go see the events that you want, to get tickets to the events that you want, whether that's live sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Anything that's going on in your area, Game Time inside the app, they have the best deals to get you to the things that you want to see. They also have a brand new feature called Game Time Picks, and it makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams and your favorite live events even easier, because Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They have it all exactly where you need it. Plus, they also give you their lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. On top of that, Game Time's ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in all of the ticketing industry. So if you want to go to Thursday Night Football in New Orleans and you're a Broncos fan, get inside the Game Time app and find the best deals possible for prime time action. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. The Broncos play another game here in just a matter of a couple of days on Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. We'll have the build-up here for all of you in Broncos country leading up to kickoff and even a post-game report. Sarah's going to sit down with Locked On Saints host Ross Jackson this week to preview Thursday night's game between Bo Nix versus Spencer Rattler. Bo Nix taking on that tough New Orleans Saints defense, and a rookie quarterback taking on a Denver defense that struggled on third down this past week, that's looking to bounce back and get back to how they played in the first couple of weeks here. What can we expect in the build-up to this game? Well, first things first, Sayre, Sean Payton, we met with him in his Monday conference call following the game on Sunday, And he himself understands like it's going to be a little bit emotional going back to New Orleans because of what he's been able to do, but he's not expecting a warm, fuzzy welcome coming back to New Orleans, the house that he kind of helped rebuild there from 2006, obviously to when he retired.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing is like, you won a Super Bowl with that franchise, obviously. So I think he should be well received, right? And that's just the way that we see all these legacy players and coaches coming back to Denver lately, Cody, to kind of be, whether it's being enshrined into the Ring of Fame or whether it's just being honored on a given week, like Chris Harris Jr. this past weekend. Even against the team that Chris left the Broncos for, right? So, it's like the Broncos fan base and I think the ownership group understands like, hey, when we bring back a franchise legend, we want to welcome this person and this player or the coach or whatever back and respect them for what they did for this team. Now, Sean Payton, the initial reaction by Saints fans, I'm sure is going to be like, hey, you kind of left us hanging out to dry. Like there was a lot of people who felt like Sean quit on the Saints. Remember that narrative when he was being potentially hired by the Broncos or others? It's just like, yeah, do you really want a coach that quit on his team in New Orleans? I feel like Sean did so much there to be able to be welcomed back with a great reception. I think it's probably fair for him to assume and expect that it's going to be a negative immediate reaction, but look, it's all about the game here, right? It's all about getting that win against the Saints. Like Sean Payton has to become 1-0 against the Saints as a head coach, and I think that that's the biggest key for him right now is figuring out, how do I get my young team, the team that I want to see get even younger as we go forward this season? How do I see that team go on the road and win on a short week? That has to be the focus after the emotion kind of wears off in those initial moments.
That's exactly what he said as well. He said, I'm going to meet with the team on Tuesday. And he said, my message is going to be like, this is all about the game. He said, it's not about like, me going back there. It's about, we need to get our fourth win. And he couldn't be more spot on about that because like the reserve of being able to say like, hey, I'm going back to a place, that's very special to me. Like there's emotion associated with that. Jeff Legel, the VSPN, I thought asked a great question to Sean because they brought up like when Peyton Manning went back to Indianapolis, they waited till all the teams were back on the field to do the tribute video. And even Peyton himself, like Peyton Manning, when that happened, said it kind of impacted him in some way there. So, Sean's not going to like buy into that. He wants to win. And look, he says, I hate losing more than anything. I've seen how Sean is like, he can't stand it, but how do you turn things around on such a short week? So what is the Broncos approach this week, Sayre? Monday, they came in for a full day of treatment at the team facility, treatment, IV recovery, and also getting a lift in while also doing a full day of film. And then Tuesday, they're on the practice field for their first time of the week, and it's going to be a light practice. They're not going to be in pads. They're not going to be doing any physical contact. And then Wednesday, they're traveling to New Orleans to, go out there and prepare for that Thursday night game. And I think the reprieve here is okay. After Thursday, guess what? You get a little bit of extra time. It's kind of like a little bit of a mini bye week where you can try to get healthy. We expect some guys like Baron Browning, Mike McGlinchey to potentially be back. Not sure if that's going to happen Thursday or after Thursday, but Denver's evaluating things here saying, okay, hey, we're going to plan to go a little bit younger. Audric Estime is fresh off of IR, and you got Devaughn Vele fresh off of his injury, and you got Troy Franklin who's healthy. Now, while you're coming off of a game, you have a chance to come in somewhat fresh at certain positions and certain areas. That's how they're going to approach it. Once again, I think the status quo to expect no PS2 this week here for Denver.
Yeah, and I think you just made a great point, Cody, when it talks about the why now for the comments to be coming out about this youth movement, right? Well, it really does make sense on a short week to get somebody who's maybe a little bit fresher than others like Audric Estime back out there, right? And I get that there may be some rust to knock off for players like Baron Browning, Mike McGlinchey, things like that. So whether or not we see them, I don't know that that necessarily plays into it, but I think there's something to the idea of the freshness for somebody like Estime or Devaughn Vele, who just played really his first game since week 1, right? And his first major action anyway. So to me, there's something to that kind of freshness there for these guys that, hey, the guys who have been out there the whole time, that wear and tear, that can be a huge disadvantage for those guys. But for you guys who are fresh, you guys who are coming in, say, hey, I just came off of IR, or I just came back from an injury. Those guys could really be key in a game like this against New Orleans, where, hey, you're on a short week. You need some guys to step up. You need some guys to make plays. Well, let's call on some young guys to make plays then and see if those fresh legs can't help out a lot in a game like this where the wear and tear on other players could be detrimental.
Well, and seemingly Denver has somewhat played a little bit better on the road this year. I think from a consistency standpoint in comparison, look, throw the New York Jets game out of the mix here. Like even in the second half, that one drive was so crucial for Denver there. But they've seemingly been a little bit better and more focused on the road than they have at home, which has been a little bit surprising to see here. But obviously, the stakes get a little bit higher here for this Broncos team. We've said it before. Their expected win total was 5.5 on the major sports book, including our friends over there at FanDuel. And the fact that they're here at 3 wins right now, they're sitting at 500. They have a chance to match that total. They're surpassed the expectations, I think, in which what people thought they'd be based on the preseason takes about their roster, where they're at, the depth, things like that, positions they have to overcome. Denver is doing better than I think most people expected. But, I think the expectation is like when Denver has like moments where they can compete and be in games, and all of a sudden then they falter back to some of the old stuff, a lot of people think, shame on me for getting my hopes up. The same old Broncos are back. Look, it's a young team that's dealing with a lot of different pieces. If we're going to be honest and objective about it, the Broncos are competing right now, even with dealing with all the dead cap surrounding Russell Wilson's salary that they're going to be paying this season and next season. And they also have a lot of pending free agents here this offseason, but they're also going to have a lot of room to work with financially. And that, to me, I think is very exciting. I think Denver's in a better position, even though that they didn't play well here in week 6. But now you can't let a negative compound into a little bit of a snowball effect of where you go on a streak of losing games, especially with some of the tougher games that are coming up. Denver's going to have to take care of business and get some wins here. But as we've seen, the NFL is a week-to-week scenario here. Denver, they don't get a week to prepare for the next opponent. They only get a few days. So we'll have you covered every step of the way here following Tuesday's practice, final Wednesday updates. Sarah's going to have you covered with a crossover with Locked On Saints and Ross Jackson here. And then you're going to get the Locked On Broncos postgame report on Thursday and a little bit of a bonus episode on Friday as well. Broncos Country, we appreciate you so much for rocking with us. We'll catch you tomorrow for a brand new episode of the show.